Now today in the shop, we're going to work on detail sanding out some of the Buell parts that we have in-house. We're still waiting for BMW parts, and of course we're scheduling things for all three of these restorations based on how Vlad wants to put the bikes back together. He's got three of them all stripped down in his house. So it's pretty intense time in the shop, and I'm sure for Vlad too. But if you've never seen a windy video before, you're in for a real treat. We're going to be busy probably for the next 2 or 3 months restoring 3 motorcycles at exactly the same time. Now on today's video, we're going to try to work on some of the Buell parts. The reason is we checked in with Vlad and he does not have the last of the BMW parts that we still have to paint the red stripe on and put the clear on, the fairing, the belly pan, the seat. We don't have that in-house yet, but I don't want to waste a day. It's a rainy day. I wanted to get some of the sanding done on a Buell, so if tomorrow or the next day we get another one of these beautiful painting days, that we've had some good days. I want to have parts ready to go. We have the Buell parts, and the side fairings that already have the clear on are under a heating vent drying. This should be a very productive day. Now, of course, whether you're doing one restoration at a time or like we're doing 3, I've done multiples in the past. But there's always delays, and there's always times you wish, well, I wish I had those parts, or I wish the weather was better. But for me, the challenge always is to work around the weather, work around the time constraints I have. And there'll always be days when I really wish I could paint today, well, but I don't have the parts. And in the case of this triple restoration, we're still waiting for parts that are coming from Italy. So I don't know, it may be a real delay. But in the meantime, we're not going to waste any time. We'll get a lot of the Buell parts sanded and ready for the next painting day. Now our fish are finally coming out of hibernation, and actually they're starting to eat a little bit every day, but summer's really not here yet, to be honest. And we have to deal with the rain on and off all day. We're not even going to try to get anything set up to paint today. So to use up this day efficiently, one of the things I can get done, I can get this part sanded. Now see this part up here, this is a really thick sticker. I'm not sure we can even put that you can't feel it at all, but we can make it a lot better. And this has a lot of little paint nibs on it. This part never really got buffed out the way it should. But this will be one of the things is getting this done today and having this all ready for put the clear on, because then the clear can be where this clear is, curing out and getting that final cure on it where it'll be easy to buff. I need to get the yellow paint from Vlad. He's going to bring that over. He needs to touch the yellow up before we do anything else on that. These 2 parts are curing up. See, it's like working in a bakery. Anyway, and these parts are ready to be sanded out. And this part buffed out just beautifully. So we got a lot of work. It's a big job. And to be honest, nobody's coming over to do it for me. So I'm going to have a cup of coffee and get busy. So the sandpaper, we're going to start with 400 grit Mirka. This is WPF Pro. You can get it from Amazon. It's really high quality sandpaper. All the Mirka paper is good. The Pro paper is just a little bit better. Now start with a little bit of soapy water and cleaning the part with Simple Green. This is in fast forward. I don't want to have the video go on too long. A lot of it I'll put in fast forward where it's really the same thing over and over again. Again, this sticker is the one we're really concerned with, and these paint edges. And wherever a paint and the carbon come together, there's a paint edge that I have to deal with very, very carefully. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to start by putting the first little part of the sand out. This is with 400 sandpaper, wet or dry. I wanted to put the first little piece I'm doing, and I'm doing it like a checkerboard, 1 piece at a time. And I want to get the rough sanding of just how long it takes to do it. I like to do this in real time, pull the camera forward without a camera cut. Then the rest of it we can kind of do in fast forward. You'll get the picture of what has to happen. It is to your advantage to some degree if you can go top to bottom, side to side, and then around. The idea is not to go in only one direction. Go in various directions. The more you can mix and match it, the better. Keep the sandpaper good and wet. So I'm going on one angle, than trying to crisscross it. Some of the people I've talked to in body shops say that when they do the hood of a car, they try to do it that way so it makes like a waffle pattern with the sanding scratches, and it's easier to buff out. Now, we don't care about that part of it right now because this is going to get more clear on it. But again, I'm working with the clear somebody else put on here, and there are several mistakes in it that I'm going to try to get out. There's several little fish eyes I'm going to be working on, and here's one of them. And you can just get a little idea of the person that did this. Yeah, they left a few stones unturned, but our goal is we're going to try to make it as good as we can. And this is the point at which you have to start getting really, really fussy. It becomes a labor of love to a certain degree, all of these jobs. But keep in mind what has to happen here. These are very, very expensive parts. And I'm candling it, looking at it in different angles, trying to see where I need to put a little more effort. I'm trying to get it that it's all dull, especially around this logo that's very, very thick. There's one on the seat too. And the only way I know how to do this is to leave a little bit of shine around where the edge is. And when I go to put the clear on this, I'll try to put as much clear as I reasonably can without getting a run. And a lot of thin coats is the answer. Now, sanding this part out, this had a lot of paint nubs. I think what happened, the gentleman that painted this before I did, he was using a little different technique than I use, and he just put the buffer on it without sanding it out. Because that's what happens when you can still see the nubs in the paint. But we're not going to have that happen, and it's not a problem. I'm not trying to criticize anybody's work. In fact, I'd like to help him figure out what I did here to make the part better. And maybe he can use that to his advantage too. I know Vlad is going to pass on the videos to him, the link. Anyway, I'm doing it like a checkerboard, back and forth, looking for places, constantly looking, candling it, trying to find spots where there's little imperfections, little fish eyes, being super careful around the edges. This part, you don't really see it on the video, but where those color changes are, there's little... In the carbon fiber, there's high spots, there's mountains in the mold. So if I sand too aggressively, I'm going to scar the carbon fiber, and I don't want to do that. So I'm always walking a fine line here. I want to sand it, and I want to get it as flat as possible, but I'm walking to the edge of a cliff, because if I go a little bit too far and I scar it, it's a real problem, and then I've got a big repair job. In the case of getting in and putting a scar in the carbon, there's no cure. You're going to live with it, or just paint over it with paint. But I've done it enough times to know at this point in time, it just is very time consuming. I'm picking away at every little mistake here. Wipe it down, get the sandpaper, wipe it down. And the key here, the word is patience. And I have learned over many, many years of doing it. See the high spot there? And there's little imperfections in there. I want to get every one of them out if I can. And the last thing at the end of every part, I go, and I'm sitting here right underneath, directly underneath a 4-foot fluorescent light. And this light, it shows me every little error, and I just go back and forth, and you can see how many times I'm doing this. And believe me, this goes on for a long time. I can also see any little other mistakes that I want to correct. And I basically have to be so careful about sanding around these paint edges where the edge of the paint and the carbon fiber come together. I want to keep that perfect, and those stickers. Now, luckily, when I got to the end of doing this part, and this was really labor intensive, this took a long time. I had another cup of coffee. I wiped it all down with M600 and found a couple more mistakes. Got to do that, take care of every single one of them. I don't want to have any mistakes in there if I possibly can. And when I was done, actually, I was pretty happy with the way the part came out. It surprisingly, how much time it took to do this, you really can't put into words just how long this takes, because all you really see in here is fast forward. Now, these parts, they're really relatively flat, relatively simple, but they still have the paint edge issue that I have to deal with, and that is a significant thing. Because if I muddy up that issue, that edge, it's going to be a real issue I have to deal with. So rather than try to go real as fast as I possibly can here. I decided to take my time, especially around those paint edges, and especially around the edge of the carbon fiber where it wraps around, because that was kind of rough on this. When they pulled this out of the mold, I don't know if they trimmed it. I try to straighten that out, get it as nice as possible. And in this case, it's just a lot of work. There's just no way. This kind of stuff, you just can't make it go. There's no machine I know of you can use. I do know they make some things for orbital sanders that you can put 2,000 grit paper on and 400 grit. I've always found that when you're using smaller parts like this, there's no substitute for just taking your time. It's just time consuming. And like a lot of things in life, there's a lot of things that are very expensive and a lot of things that are not expensive but time consuming. And there's just some things, and I have thought about it long and hard. If I could come up with a machine that would do this, well, the machine is me, I guess. I don't know. And to convince people of that go from this look to where it's ultra shiny, if you put a coat of clear on top of that, it's going to come off like saran wrap. Good chance it will. So cleaning every part with simple green, and at the end of it, Prepsol or M600, or wiping it down, even with acetone would probably be okay, or lacquer thinners, but to get off any of the contamination, so important. Now, when you think about it, this job, I have no idea how much this carbon fiber was. It's a very expensive thing. Anything carbon fiber is expensive. But then you add in all of the time it took to ship it from Europe to here, and what that must have cost, and then add in the fact that you gotta buy a Buell to hook it onto, and then I fixed the original Buell fairings, and that's on our channel too, the Buell fairing repair. That was a labor of love. So this Buell, when we're done with this Buell, it's going to be quite a project to the first time we see it all put together and buffed out and whatever. And that's always what keeps me going. Now here's a part that's going to be an issue. This horse sticker, this red, white, and blue sticker, is about 1/8 of an inch thick. And I know I'm not going to be able to bury it in clear. If I put that much clear on, it's going to be very prone to cracking. So what I did, I've just very, very carefully sanded around it. And I mean, this was really, I was walking on thin ice here worrying about that. Because if I go through, you're not going to be able to touch it up. It's going to be a scar that you got to look at. Now, I still have to get the yellow paint from Vlad. This paint has a flaw in it that he wanted corrected before we put the rest of it clear. But having this all sanded out today, boy, did this set us up for a beautiful day if we get a painting day. And we're in the time of the year where the weather is starting to change. It's getting a little warmer. We actually have had some nice riding days. But it's not really the teeth of the winter now. So I'm trying to schedule this project out one piece at a time without losing any days. But a lot of these parts of the project take more than one day to do. That front fairing took about a week to do. All the steps. But it's all coming to fruition soon. Well, we made use of what amounted to be a throwaway day where we were not able to paint, not able to ride, not able to do anything. But we did get these parts prepped, so the next day, unless we have parts for the BMW, see, because we're always trying to sequence things, the BMW has priority, but those parts are somewhere I can't work on them. So rather than just sit around waiting, I got these parts prepped up. If we get a day to shoot clear in the next couple of days, these parts can be in clear, and then they can be sitting up there waiting and curing, and that buys us time right along the way to getting all these projects going. This is an enormous project, and one of the things you can pick up from, I think, from it is how to use the weather and how to use, well, this is the way I do it anyway. I'm sure other people have other ways, but this way works for me, especially when I'm doing multiple projects. So when this day was totally over and I had thought about how it played out today, I just thought, this is one of the things that I've always been able to use to my advantage, is be able to schedule things for a rainy day, things for a crappy day, and then when a good day comes along, a bright sunny day, I'm not sanding, I'm outside shooting clear. And hey, you know, if you have a spray booth or you have a body shop you can work with, yeah, that's great. But in my case, I've been able to do all the restorations in my humble collection. I've been able to do them all without a spray booth, without any expensive equipment. and without any real super high-tech stuff. But what I do have a lot of is passion, and what I have an extra amount of is energy. And thanks for watching.